Welcome to the Interlude. I am Rachel Coots.
And I'm Courtney Sexton.
We're the co-founders of the Interlude. If you don't know about us, welcome. This is the local DC writing community, and it's pretty amazing. You guys are really feeling it, and I like it. Thank you all for coming. If you don't know about us, we...
Shame on you.
Shame on you, first of all.
I'm kidding.
We cultivate and promote the distinctive literary culture of Washington, D.C. We do that through low to no cost programs like this, reading. We also have retreats, summer residency program, author's corner program, all kinds of stuff. You should check us out, theinterludelit.org. It's also on the program, along with a little QR code to donate. Though this event is free to you, it is not free to make. It actually takes quite a lot of organizing, if I do say so myself. So if the spirit moves you, we encourage you to use that little QR code and send us some love via money.
Or claps are good too.
We also like claps.
Yeah, we're thrilled to be here. Sorry. This evening, as some of you may know, we take a little bit of a break in July. So this will be our last reading event until closer to the end of August. So if you don't hear from us, we're not here. We're just not
on
here. But during that time, we will have ongoing our summer residency program. This is our 10th year hosting a cohort of writers at the Woodlawn and Pope Leahy House and Arcadia Center for Sustainable Food and Agriculture out in Virginia. It is a commuter's residency, and we're thrilled that partnership continues to be strong. We've got a really amazing group coming in this summer, and they'll be attending orientation on Thursday. Right?
Exciting.
Yeah. Write-a-thon. We recently had a fundraiser which many of you participated in, and it was amazing. Thank you so much. We raised
$19,000.
Yeah, it was really fabulous. Everybody came and sat and actually just pens to the paper, fingers to the keys. Wrote for 8 hours straight throughout the day, and it was a huge success, so thanks for that.
It's actually a lot harder than you think, writing for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
They did it.
We did it.
And they were sweating, and then we gave them the water at the end.
And food.
And food.
Yeah, we fed them.
Other announcements. We have a retreat coming up in the fall, and applications for that will be open in August, so again, keep a lookout on the socials and the website, and beyond that.
We also have a little something called the Writer's Nook that we have in collaboration with the Goethe Institute, which is at 14th and R. So if we have any teachers in the crowd who would like to get out of the house to write, you can come to the Goethe Institute and write there for free. All you got to do is shoot us a note, hello@theinterludelit.org. Let us know that you would like to use the space. It's beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking 14th Street. So shoot us a note and come and write with us.
Yeah. And I think that's all of our announcements. The way this goes down, for those of you who have not been here, we have our featured reader for the evening, and then we'll kick it off with 3 writers. We'll take a little bit of a break for intermission so you can refill beverages, chat a little bit more, and then we'll come back for the second half.
And silence your cell phones.
Yes. I'm going to do something a little bit unusual tonight at the request of my dad. Oh, sorry. He's going through some stuff, and he's also just a wonderful weirdo, and I love him so much. And he sometimes sends me haikus as text messages, though I don't know that he intends them to be haikus. They're just kind of end up that way. But this one kind of was. He's a dog person, as am I. This is primarily about his dogs. This is a poem for dads that he wrote, not me. The mournful howl walked up to the dune with Sandy. Sandy's a dog. The mournful howl of the heathen, another dog. I don't dare engage, lest he be here, the heathen, the beast that sleeps on my neck. So anyway, for God. Thank you all for entertaining that. Now I'm really, really excited to welcome and introduce Kat Chow, a reporter, teacher, writer, and the author of Seeing Ghosts, a memoir. named a notable book by the New York Times. She was this year's George Washington University 2024-25 Jenny McKean Moore Writer in Washington, where she teaches creative nonfiction. Kat was a reporter at NPR, where she was a founding member of the Code Switch team and podcast, which is awesome. If you don't know it, you should listen. Her work has appeared in the New York Times Magazine, The Atlantic, The Paris Review, New York Magazine's The Cut, and on Radiolab, among others. She's a contributor to Pop Culture Happy Hour and Slate's Culture Gabfest and has hosted Slate's The Waves. She's received residency fellowships from Story Knife and from Malay Arts. She's led classes and spoken about her reporting in Amsterdam, Calgary, Karachi, Seattle, and many other places. Welcome, Kat.
Hi all. Thank you for that wonderful intro, and I hope that throughout this evening you take out your phone, you scan that QR code, and you donate to the Inner Loop. This is a wonderful community, and I'm so honored to read as part of it. So when I was thinking about what to read today, I was inspired by this wonderful humidity in DC. Let's give a shout out to the no, but in all honesty, it actually did inspire what I was going to read today, so thanks for that. So I'm going to be reading from Seeing Ghosts, which came out in 2021, and this is a book that's a lot about loss, I would say, but it's a lot about reconnecting with family in the many different avenues that we find them. And so in this scene, I'm with my family in Havana, Cuba, and some of the backstory is that my grandfather on my dad's side left Hong Kong and China sometime in the 1920s or 1930s to work and live in Havana, Cuba, where he ended up dying. And it became kind of a quest for my father to find his father. And so Seeing Ghosts is a lot about those different resonances. And I have my phone out because I'm going to keep an eye on the time. So let's do this. Okay. They slide the plank beneath the rectangular stone that sits on the mouth of the vault. And here we're in a cemetery in Havana. And this is a cemetery that belongs to a bunch of Chinese tongs. Those are Chinese associations. So they heave and pry it upward. This reveals crumbling stairs that lead to a damp and dark underground space. My father flips up his sunglasses, but still I cannot read his expression. He's waited 7 decades for this. I hand him a flashlight and hold his backpack while he lowers himself into the crypt. Caroline and I follow, constricting our limbs so that we won't scrape the walls and the stacks of concrete boxes that surround us. They're the size of milk crates, in varying conditions, some of them more than a century old. Painted on their sides are numbers or names in Chinese or Spanish, all part of a system we haven't deciphered. That is, if they are labeled at all. They extend rows deep, and accessing the furthest ones would require a game of life-size, high-stakes Tetris in order to bring the hidden ones forward. I can't tell how large this space is. I can't see past the boxes to determine the boundaries. I can only squeeze myself into the narrow aisles between the rows, trying not to knock over the remains of the men who had been conscripted into indentured servitude, the laborers after, and their descendants. Some of the boxes gape open and greet us with exposed skulls and bones. Before we boarded the plane to Havana, I tried to prime my father's expectations. I thought that this was smart and dutiful. I'd spent months reaching out to professors or anyone who might have contacts here in Barrio Chino, and I quickly understood we might be disappointed. What are you expecting to find? I'd asked my father at the airport. I don't know, he had said. We might not find anything. I just want to take a look. Resignation crept into his voice. Someone at the cemetery tells us that some Cubans believed the remains of Chinese immigrants held magic, so they smashed the tombs and snatched these remains to procure their power. If this is true, I wonder if that desecration was worth it, and if they felt any such luck, or if they were haunted by what they did. My father disappears into a chamber of another Tong, this one an above-ground mausoleum. Its floor is chaotically tiled with a mound of femurs, skulls, and tibias, all stained ivory shards protruding from one another. I follow him, confused that I'm not shrinking back from this, like I did from the sea bass, like I did from the image of you stuffed in my living room. Now I am inured, though my feet are heavy and my limbs press closer to my sides. How many humans are in this pile? How and when did these people die? My father strains to read the names on some boxes across the room. I see him hesitate before the heap of bones, but finally he sidesteps over them, his sneakers knocking into them, a skeletal wind chime. I don't want to breathe next to these bones and their fragments and their dust. I'm afraid if I inhale, I'll suck in the particles of the dead, their spirits too. But I do exhale, then inhale, a gentle must, sweet hay. This is the scent of decay and bones, and maybe somewhere my grandfather. We repeat our search through new vaults half a dozen more times, whatever ones we can get unlocked. There's a lot of bureaucracy doing this. The opening of the crypts, the descent into a permanent hell, the furtive browsing of bones. Dazed, my legs carry me across the cemetery grounds. I can't walk into any more tombs. I can't step over any more cracked skulls. A stray dog I've been watching all morning trots along the perimeter and toward me. A splinter of bone hangs from its mouth. Jesus Christ. I back from the dog and look for my sister. At some point, we have to stop searching. We've been at this for hours. We're becoming dehydrated and hungry, but neither Caroline nor I want to tell our father to stop looking. So we wait by the cemetery's front gate. 15 minutes later, he emerges. We watch him weave between the memorials. I can't tell what he's thinking. The way his head swivels, his lips pursed, and his expression strained. He looks like a lost child, appropriate since he is looking for his father. It's humid and sticky, and he pants a little. There are too many unlabeled boxes, too many piles of loose, clattering remains. I want to take a picture, he says, and then we go. He digs into his backpack to retrieve his digital SLR and attaches an enormous lens. It is the only lens he uses, and it requires him to stand a dozen feet back to take close-up portraits, which feels fitting, a distance required for his version of intimacy. He hoists it to his face. The twist on his mouth deepens, and I wish I could take a photo of him right here, this way, in this dusty cemetery. His camera clicks, still audible, when he walks to the street to take in the cemetery's front gate and sign. Afterward, we return to Barrio Chino. I want to come back here, our father tells Caroline and me. She offers him water from her bottle and patiently waits as he downs most of it. His conviction has grown in the past half hour since we've left the cemetery. If he tries hard enough, if he works hard enough, if he pushes himself enough, he can find his father. He wants to sift through more records. He wants to convince more of the leaders to unlock their Tong's vaults. There are so many people whom we haven't been able to meet in this short week. I can see the calculations flickering as he tallies time and money and his own endurance. Okay, Caroline says. Okay, I say. There is not much else to say. At dinner, we each order a mojito because we figure rum is made here and a cocktail is about the same price as a bottle of water. My father, who's not much of a drinker, who likes to tell the story of the single time he got drunk on a rare business trip when he guzzled a complimentary bottle of wine in his motel room, the whole one, downs his in a few minutes. His cheeks redden and he shifts in his seat. "It's so hot," he says. He swishes the ice from his glass and sips the last dregs. "We should have gone somewhere with air conditioning." "Drink some water." I push my bottle toward him. "No, you need to drink water. You're dehydrated." "No," he glares this time. "Here, put this against your wrist," I say. I slide his glass, dewy with condensation, toward him. "It'll help you cool down." "Stop telling me what to do," he says. He stands abruptly and pushes back his chair, its legs squeaking, his voice loud and ringing. "You're always trying to tell me what to do." The restaurant falls silent. Someone at another table says the word chino and follows it with laughter. "You're drunk," I say. He rushes from the restaurant to pace outside. "You're always so bossy," my sister Caroline says. I'm amused and grinning because I am also dehydrated and a little drunk, and I want to provoke her and say, "I've always been bossy," which is a Chow thing, because who doesn't revert a little to their childish ways when they're around family? But I shout my mouth. We finish our dinner, ignoring one another. From our table inside, we watch our father stand under a street lamp, his arms across his chest. He's waiting for us because he cannot remember the way back to our hostel. I point this out to Caroline, and she rolls her eyes at me and pays our tab. As we walk, our father remains a few steps in front of us, not making eye contact or acknowledging us. Every few blocks, our voices purposefully light so as not to sound pushy. Caroline or I say, "A map says straight," or "I think we have to turn right here." Caroline, also flushed with rum, records a short video on her phone and occasionally breaks into a laugh. In the video, the two of us sheepishly follow our father in the dark, the edges of smiles cracking onto our faces, all the while trying to guide him down the street. The next day, we hire a cab for the 30-minute trip to Playa del Este. It's a vintage car from the 1940s or 50s, and we're briefly thrilled by the novelty. But every time we drive over a bump, we lurch toward the roof. We spend the entire ride tense and quiet as we brace against one another. And we arrive at the beach in the early evening, just as other tourists fold their lounge chairs and return to Havana. "Wow," my father says, still thinking about the drive. He whistles. "That was really something. I thought we were going to die." He draws out the word "die," and the three of us make the same laugh. He walks along the edge of the water in his swimsuit, his two jade necklaces swinging against his chest, new ones from another day spent in Chinatown, his arms folded. He watches the waves lick his feet with the same scowl he used in the crypts. Nearby, small children splash, and a couple embraces. "Look at Daddy frowning at the water," Caroline says. She takes a photo of him on her phone. I'm wearing a dress I've borrowed from her, but I wade into the ocean, warm as a bath, the sand doughy beneath my feet. "Do you like this?" I say to my father. "This is nice." "The water has good buoyancy," he says. He's suspended on his back and looking at the sky. He remains still while the waves prod him along. When I was little, he taught me to swim in a pond not far from our house. Face down in the water, he helped me kick up my legs and blow bubbles, gamely ignoring the duck poop as it floated by our heads. He showed how, if I let myself stay still, if I trusted the water could be forgiving, it would catch and hold me. "Stretch your arms out wide, your legs too. Close your eyes and hold your breath so you don't inhale the water." In that moment, it was like there was nothing my father could not do. "It's called dead man's float," he had said. "You don't need to do anything. You just float." I didn't understand then where the name originated. Suspended in the ocean, I do now. In a flash, I picture the country taking him like it took his father, those waves sweeping him out to the depths of the sea, swallowing him whole, his parents and my mother watching from high above in the sky. I grab on to one of my father's ankles to keep him from bobbing further from ashore. Then I let go, and I allow the waves to cradle me. Thank you. And again, as we move into intermission, or as I pass this up, I just wanted to say I hope you take your phone, scan that QR code, make some donations. Thank you so much, all.
Kat, can you join the board? Because you're really good at that. Thank you so much. We will now have 3 readers in fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. No, just fiction and poetry. You nonfictioners should really submit. We need you. We need you to come and represent. We'll have 3 readers. Please stick to your 5-minute limit. Be respectful of each other's time. And also, Courtney's feeling alive. And she is the timekeeper, and she will begin to cough and slowly move towards you in a very awkward way that everyone will notice and stop listening. So you should stick to your time because it's classy. Okay, so, quick housekeeping. Here's a little light in case you brought paper. You can move the mic like this. See this over here? This over here? Don't do this. You can't hear me. Point it at your mouth. Move this up and down. You're tall or short? Tall or short? Okay, you guys got it. All right, kicking us off in fiction, Elizabeth Bruce.
Thank you all so much. This is great. I'm delighted to be here. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm going to read a short piece of fiction. It's called The Forgiveness Man. It's from recently released story collection, universally adored, another $1 stories. Every story begins with the words $1. $1 for your troubles. In the corner of the dollar store parking lot, just outside the faded yellow line beyond which no shopping cart could roll, an old man in flapping dungarees stood shouting atop a milk crate. One by one, the people hurried past, clasping the pudgy hands of their toddlers tighter, wrapping the straps of their handbags over their chests, scanning the strip mall for familiar faces. It was early evening on a summer's payday, and Californians came and went, their bags filled with detergent and diapers and sheets.
"Lay that baby buck down over here," the old man roared, "and I will give you a gold mine of forgiveness, an abundance of absolution."
A young woman with a newborn bundled in a ragged green snuggly stopped and stood gaping at the man. The breeze blew his sparse gray hair back, and a mangled red ear appeared. The young woman's baby stirred, and she hushed her with a dainty hand. A heavy-set man in dark blue coveralls ambled over, the emblem of his employer smudged with grease. He studied the old man's face, a treasure map of scars it was, leading to some long-forgotten bounty, perhaps not, who's to say? The man's wife joined him, shielding her eyes from the setting sun and deepening the furrows of her brow.
"See, this here forgiveness is my gift," the old man said softly, looking straight at the young mother transfixed before him. "I carry on these 2 bony shoulders all the sins of all the people, 'cause folks done and did to me damn near every wrong a body can do to another. Beat downs, slap-arounds, whippings, humiliations, thievery, lies, betrayals, carnal knowledge, covetations, callous disregard, treachery, treason, equivocations." The heavy-set man glanced at his wife, the remnants of contrition etched across his face. "You name it," the old man continued, taking in the small crowd gathering before him. A pair of scruffy skateboarders slouched at the edge, their sun-blonde hair falling over their beach boy eyes. "Any violation that leaves a body bloody but still standing." That there's been done to me, he said. So I figured. The old man shifted his gaze back to the young mother in front. I got the right to forgive anybody, anything. That there's my gift, and I will share it with you good people. A sob broke out from the young mother, and her slumbering baby flinched, her tiny limbs jerking inside the snuggly. Whatever it is, sweetheart, he stepped off his crate and bent toward the young woman weeping before him. Whatever sins of the fathers or the fathers' fathers you've been carrying around with you all these years, one hug from these arms will bring you a feast of forgiveness. The young woman took out her last dollar and gave it to the man. He wrapped his spindly arms around her, and sure enough, she felt a peace come over her that she'd been without so long she thought it stillborn inside her. Just then her baby woke, and the piercing staccato of a newborn rose. The old man laid his rough hand on the child's tiny head, and she quieted. Folks looked at each other, their doubts assuaged, and a line formed in front of the old man. And so it went, up and down the California coast that summer of my first year of life. She traveled with him from June through August, my mother said, leaving behind the ragtag band of other runaways she was living with in an abandoned gas station. She let go of abandonment itself that very evening, she told me years later when I was grown, and decided then and there to keep her baby no matter the cost, and she threw the whole of her young, wounded heart into spreading the old man's redemption with him. Down they went, this peculiar pair with an old milk crate, into the crevices of canyons filled with migrants, and the recesses of communes and campgrounds filled with the newly evicted. The forgiveness man, they came to call him, my mother and all her fellow forgivens, bedraggled godless who'd left their grandmother's religion behind, the heathen and damaged, and those dying with their sins uncleansed. Word spread, and the people came. Thieves came, emptying pockets of stolen objects. Bosses came, heavy with wages denied. Errant lovers came for reborn fidelity. Addicts came, bent with remorse. Fathers came, yearning for families lost to idleness. Mothers came, grieving for children spurned by second fathers. All manner of humanity flowed to the forgiveness man. They laid their dollars down, and the forgiveness man stepped off his crate and wrapped his burned and battered arms around them, young and old, dark and light, the stooped and the upright, the sober and the strung out, humbled folk from all the discarded chapters of lives, undone, there in the golden state. So it went, the stories that my mother told and told again in the last year of her good life. Fervent tales that had become the fables of our family. And favorite among them was the one she told often at the end of how she and our father had finally found each other there, again among the forgiven folks that summer, and how the old man had blessed them, this young couple with a tiny babe, and how he'd held them close and sent them out into the world with the gift of the first dollar my mother had given to him that day in the parking lot, and all the other dollars the people had given to them in their few months together. Ours, the old man said, the girl and her baby had earned learning how to forgive. And so, as she lay dying, my mother gathered our family round. She unfolded the forgiveness dollar, she called it, this weathered old bill that has brought her absolution so long ago from the forgiveness man. Over the years, she's placed it in our hands many times, my brothers and mine, whenever we've been troubled or fearful or ashamed. And her mother had stood before us, and we'd handed her the dollar, and she'd wrapped her thin arms around us and conjured up her forgiveness man to keep us whole and safe and bound to each other. And then, there we go.
Next in poetry, Chrissy Stegman.
It'd be really cool if I do this. I just got taller and taller. Thanks for having me. I'm actually from Baltimore, but DC feels like a second home. So I'm happy to be here. So happy Pride also. The first one, Breaking news, Barbie eats Trump during Baltimore Pride Fest. What else was left for her to do? Giant in pink, her laughter clanging down Charles Street, like bells rung wild to the dystopian melody. She was ablaze in glorious sequins, swirls through the crowd. Her skirts sliced the air like ribbons of rampage, her manicured hands filled with noise and want. She saw him glitterless, small in the gold chair he made for himself, a throne as yellow as piss. The crowd parted like the sound of rain. She moved toward him, her shadow a blossom of organza fire in the setting sun. She plucked him like feral lint from a coat lapel. She flicked him, a spinning trinket tossed to gravity's obsequious gamble, and caught him mid-fall. Her mouth opened like a cave of cherry and fuchsia, a holler of lipstick. When he fell, she swallowed him whole. Love did this, the riot of it, love for the smashing, the making, the breaking, love for our country and the streets lit like a sky of teeth. This one's called Eve Rides Out of the Garden and the Wind Bites Its Own Tongue. She names her horse Redonkulus, plants hawthorn as a hedge, leaves Adam to water his rage by the creekside, builds a hammock from his ribs, finds the sunset mercurial, paints the apple with her period blood, writes not sorry on the fig leaf, invents wine, invents sleeping in late, keeps the knowledge and burns the tree, kisses the soil, tells her horse it's all ours, tells her horse twice. This is a pantoum called The Cost of Breathing. It opens my heart like a soda bottle when I realize I can buy The Art of War at Barnes & Noble. I can watch war from any room in my house. You can buy a gun like you buy a lamp, click, click, click. When I realize I can buy The Art of War at Barnes & Noble, no one is surprised. The world is made up of make-believe. You can buy a gun like you buy a lamp, click, click, click. I can make a mouse run in a maze from the comfort of my living room. No one is surprised. The world is made up of make-believe. Make-believe, they tell us, is for children. I can make a mouse run in a maze from the comfort of my living room. Still, I sit at the window and listen to the wisteria gossip down the fence post. Make-believe, they tell us, is for children, but look how we gather it up, load it in our cars, clutch it to our chests. Still, I sit at the window and listen to the wisteria gossip down the fence post, like conspirators, like an empurpled god. But look how we gather it up, load it in our cars, clutch it to our chests. And once a priest, or maybe a boy I loved, or maybe a dream said, like conspirators, like an empurpled god, do not dwell in your thinking, don't build a house there. And once a priest, or maybe a boy I loved, or maybe a dream said, you will never get the ghost to pay rent. Do not dwell in your thinking, do not build a house there. But I remember the time before language spoiled everything. You will never get the ghost to pay rent. Before we read Camus or Frank O'Hara, before we thought about stylish sunglasses. I remember the time before language spoiled everything. I mean, when we bent to the grass and it crowned us with ceremony. Before we read Camus or Frank O'Hara, before we thought about stylish sunglasses. When a mother's shadow meant the wolves would pass us by. I mean, when we bent to the grass and it crowned us without ceremony. When the air was thick with something older than speech and we wore it like skin. When a mother's shadow meant the wolves would pass us by. I can watch war from any room in my house. When the air was thick with something older than speech and we wore it like skin. Before the world said prove it. Before we knew the cost of breathing.
Next in fiction, Mark Miller.
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm going to read the opening pages of a story I wrote about friendship. It's called The Day I Saw Ugarte. I had to be out of Malenkoff's workshop by the time he arrived every morning at 7:30, even on Saturdays. He was a very punctilious man. Malenkoff and I had become friends a long time ago as the result of an argument about the work of the writer Tommaso della Sala. I translated a couple of della Sala's essays and published them in the Red Star in Madrid back in '67 when I was first starting out. Not long after that, when I was already in Paris, there was a lecture on della Sala at some university or other, and as I didn't have many friends yet in the city and had little to do in the evenings, I decided to attend. There were 5 people in the audience, and only 2 of them weren't gray-haired, myself and Malenkoff. We found ourselves on opposite sides of the debate whether della Sala had been a socialist or a communist, and we continued the argument at one of the student bars in the neighborhood. Anyway, that night, I learned that Malenkoff had actually known della Sala. He had been a child of 11 or 12, and della Sala was already an old man, or at least he looked like one, according to Malenkoff, prematurely aged by the fighting he'd seen in Spain in '36. At that stage of his life, he was content to live in the past. He spent hours filling young Malenkoff's head with stories about the Greeks and Romans, the Egyptians and Babylonians, the motions of time, the ebb and flow of civilizations, and the unfolding of history. Or so Malenkoff told me. I'd been thinking about all this on the day I saw Ugarte. A storm had just passed, and it was a sunny afternoon. My usual spot, a place that sold cheap ready-made sandwiches to tourists, was empty. I was working at one of the long plastic tables under the awning in front, translating a selection of stories by della Sala. Was there a market in Spain for that? My publisher thought so, though it was a small outfit and the money was barely enough to keep me in cigarettes. I could never have managed it if it hadn't been for Malenkoff. He let me sleep on the worn-out sofa pushed against a wall in his workshop. For the last couple of years, I've been living there like a Zen monk, with no possessions to speak of, no attachments, even though it wasn't by choice. It was good of Malenkoff to give me a place to stay, though. Good to know that there was still some nobility in the world, and that a long friendship between 2 old men still counted for something. My quota of pages for the day was finished, and I closed the notebook where I scratched out translations in my crabbed handwriting, lit one of my last few cigarettes, leaned back in my chair, and took a good long drag. And from a distance, I noticed a man with a steely and determined gait. I was able to catch a look at his face and his bald head bobbing up the street, and in a flash, I knew that it could only be Ugarte. It had been more than 50 years since I'd seen Ugarte, but I recognized his insolent expression right away. We'd been students together in Madrid. I came from Badajoz in Extremadura, and when he rejected the first stories I submitted for the student journal he edited, he made sure to insult me as well. I was a hick, a bumpkin. But he eventually came around and ended up with a certain kind of grudging respect for me. Later on, we got to be friends, close friends. Now his hair was gone, shaved down to the nub, and that disdainful expression he used to affect had curdled into something bitter, almost brutal. And that cane. The limp gave him a syncopated kind of stride, every step seemingly an effort of will or anger. But yes, I recognized him. 50 years, and not a day had gone by when I could conjure up his face without a feeling of shame. If there was one thing in my life I could change, one source of misery and pain I could exorcise from my soul, that memory of Ugarte was the one I would have pulled out by the roots. I took another drag on my cigarette, and through the haze of smoke, I watched him hobble in my direction, every muscle in his body tensed and hard, white knuckles gripping the head of his cane. What the hell could I say to him after so many years? He came level with the table where I was sitting, his movements jerky and rigid, and I panicked. If I was ever going to purge my disgrace and rid myself of the anguish I felt, there was only one way to do it. I cleared my throat with a single hacking cough. Ugarte, I said, in a voice that was quiet but firm. His forward motion stopped, and his bald head swiveled with difficulty in my direction. Even from a few meters away, I could see the blood vessels thumping at his temples and the sides of his taut, cable-like neck. He squinted toward me with a puzzled expression. "It's me," I said, "Francisco."
All right. I timed myself, but I am going to thank Interloop, Abby, Rachel, and I'm just everybody. Shayla, I know you're, I think you're the reason I'm here. So,
Part of the group.
part of the group? Yeah, so I had a book come out and I didn't know what to do, and the Interloop did everything for me. I can't recommend that highly enough. But let me start with some poems. There's some, wow, the world is so surreal for me today. I'm from the Middle East. I have family about an hour away from Tehran. They're not Persian. I do have Persian family members though, but my life is super complicated, just like everyone else's here. But let me start with a poem from my book that the Interloop has helped to launch. The book is called In the House of Modern Upbringing for Girls, which is a transliteration from the Arabic of the girls' school in Saudi Arabia that I attended for the first 4 years of elementary school. This poem is about the hyphen. Why aren't you just American? What is asked is not a question a brown body can answer because that body is busy being brown. That body is in flight or fight. That body is continually liminal. A limb extended to ward or greet, or a swift foot booking, but not too fast. The body is always polite, because a body from Appalachia can be Scots-Irish, and that's a heritage, a birthright, a calling, a place to be on a long summer evening by a creek bed. A hollow near a mining town that sang Europe into the mountains. A brown body can walk across a landmass, lay herself down as a bridge, erase a tongue, the color saffron, and be foreign for generations. Yellow keens here, red and brown in spice. My body walked all the striations of rock in the Badlands, burned under the sun over the Snake River. Brown can be pale too, and spice. Didn't you ever drink tea made from prairie grass or Bohemian beer in Chicago? The brown body isn't worth much. A small museum in Detroit, a name that catches in others' throats like a fine bone. You rise up at the wrong time, and they smile with white teeth while picking you apart for too many consonants in your name, for praying with cupped hands, for leaving to visit your ancestors and coming back. Why don't you just stay over there? I answer. Don't you hear my answer? This poem is about my absolute bewilderment at falling in love with poetry instead of punk rock, like or leaving punk rock for poetry, and how the hell does that happen?
What's more punk than poetry?
Well, you're gonna find out. Okay? So I'll just say that the last line of the poem is a mashup of like a punk slogan and Emily Dickinson. So there you go. When did poetry become my rock and roll? You can't pass out to Diane Seuss on the turntable while a burning cigarette flirts with your knuckles, nor smoke roll-ups with papers ripped from Sandra Simon's Bikini Warsaw, although if I could smoke the title, Ransom Note attached to Wolf's Ear, I would. Forgo friends' DJ nights for open mic. I hate myself for blinking under the Klieg light when I could be dancing to white punks on dope. Now I mainline Milosh, twitch for his war song. What are you doing here, poet? I'm here for the destruction of the 20th century. And lately I've been extravagant with ampersands because and is visually wasted on the page. I should be wasted and listening to Black Flag. Once among the smokestacks of 70s Manchester, there was a band called Warsaw, and they infected me young with their infinite black. I'm safety pinned together now by Emily Dickinson's dashes, by the fishnet stockings of her alliteration. Oi, 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 the soul selects her own society. Thank you.
Next in fiction, Samuel Ashworth.
All right. Hey, let me try something. Can you hear me in the back? No? All right, screw it. I tried. I know. It's just, wait, this is a terrible idea. All right, cool. Hi, my name's Sam. I'm going to read from my novel. It came out in March, called The Death and Life of August Sweeney. Here's what you got to know, because we're going to jump in the middle. It's the story of the rise and fall of a celebrity chef, told through his autopsy at the hands of a doctor he mysteriously handpicked for the job. What you need to know at this stage is that August Sweeney, the chef, is an enormous man, right? Think an NFL linebacker, but bigger. 2, for reasons that you really have to read the book to get, the father of the doctor, her name is Dr. Majda. Her father has sort of crashed the hospital and is in the room with her. Also with her are 3 medical students she did not want, but who Sweeney required that she teach. And finally, what you need to know is that we have come to what is known in the pathology community as the running of the bowel. Don't eat. Mr. Sweeney's entire bowel sat there, piled and slimy and shining. It almost overflowed the steel pan on his thighs. The clamps at either end stuck out of the jelly mass like chopsticks in the bowl of glutinous rice noodles. The smell in the room was softly fecal. I scooped a section of Mr. Sweeney's large intestine out of the bowl and ran its length through my hands, more slowly this time, feeling for abnormalities. The intestinal walls felt like rubbery calamari tails, pockmarked and thick. Too thick. The obvious causes came to mind swiftly: elevated cholesterol, diverticulitis, colitis, Crohn's, and then the sexier ones, like lupus, cirrhosis, or rare signet ring cancers, which don't form masses and therefore lurk undetected by better paid radiologists until it's too late. I knew I was getting ahead of myself, but I always got excited around bowels. The ancient Romans, I said, picking up a pair of round-ended scissors, used to employ a person called a haruspex to perform divination. They'd slit open a living sheep's belly and collect its entrails, then spread them still steaming on a table. There would be a question they'd be looking for an answer to, a yes or no question. Like, should I marry my daughter to this man? Should we march into battle tomorrow? And the haruspex would carefully pick over the intestines and liver, probing them for answers. We don't know exactly how the haruspex read them, but we know the organ's judgment was final. A single anal polyp could send 100 men to die. India, could you unclamp the colon? Please, India is her tech. Blanching slightly, India removed the clamp at the bottom of Mr. Sweeney's intestinal coil and took a step back. Then she took another, and another, until she was somewhere in the neighborhood of 2nd Avenue. The rest of them, my father included, were still gathered in close around me. I felt a glitter of malice. at the thought that they did not realize what I was about to do. If there's one thing you learn about medicine today, it's this. Listen to the patient's bowels. They will never lie. I flicked on the faucet and slit open the rectum and began sliding the scissors up the colon. Bits of feces crumpled into the sink. For a second, all was still. And then the students and my father were flung backwards. The gag reflex is elegantly simple. It's one of the very few reflexes that can be tamed, or at least it's one of the few anyone tries to tame. Retching is an odd creature, as reflexes go. It achieves very little. It sort of simulates the experience of vomiting with none of the benefits. It also comes from the same place, the brainstem's chemoreceptor trigger zone, or vomiting center. Retching can also be caused by the mere sight and sound of retching, because in groups of people, those vomiting centers in the brain are wired together like smoke detectors spread across a large house. If one goes off, they all go off. Hence the scene unfolding before me now. The smell could have caused turbulence in small engine aircraft. All medical professionalism was abandoned. They were reeling around the lab, gasping and heaving like soldiers under attack for mustard gas. I wasn't immune either. I could feel my abdominal muscles spasming and my throat closing. I had run countless, hundreds of bowels, many of them constipated, but this one put them all to shame. But I wasn't about to let my dad, see me crack. I don't know if whoever came up with a line, no way out but through, was talking about feces, but it certainly applied. I steeled myself and pressed onward with the scissors, holding the small intestine under the faucet as I sheared through its rubbery walls and then through all 39 ribbon-like feet of it, the chyme and feces flowing off it in yellow-brown curtains. I knew I should have been talking them through this, narrating it like David Attenborough describing the mating dance of an exotic bird. But the first thing that happens during retching is that the glottis slams shut, which protects the windpipe from anything that might be making its way back up toward the mouth. But it also makes it impossible to speak. It said the only sounds in the room were the hum of the fan, the sibilance of the scissors, the drum of the water on the sink bottom, and my father's racked cough. Thank you.
I hope you guys ate during the first half. Next in nonfiction, Wendy Goodman.
I didn't expect to be following the running of the bowel. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Interloop, for inviting me to read and for everything you do. You mean so much to me and so many writers in this community. I'm reading a story. I'm also really loud, so I can never tell if this is like just too loud or. Okay. Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm reading a personal essay about my father. We're on like a little father thing today. That was published in Furious Gravity, which is the 9th volume of Grace and Gravity, which is a journal out of American University's MFA program. And thank you for listening. It's called The Toupee. Imagine a 48-year-old father of 5, the owner of a small business in a small town in New Jersey, leaves home one morning, mostly bald, for a regular day at the office. He returns home that evening with hair. It was December 1979. I was 8, my sister Sandy 18. We were lying on the white pleather couch in the family room watching The Price is Right when our father walked in the front door and straight up the stairs. A familiar sound from our parents' bedroom followed, yelling. "What is that thing?" my mother shrieked. "What in the world did you do?" My father came home from work just before supper wearing a toupee. His Y friends wondered if he had had dental work. His customers asked if he had lost weight. The change was sudden, unexpected. Getting a toupee, like getting a facelift, should be a seamless and secretive transition. Wrinkles can't suddenly smooth out. Hair can't suddenly grow. One can't go from no bangs to bangs. It was a haircut in reverse. For my father, it was the beginning. My parents' marriage on the rocks. Maybe he needed hair, a symbol of youth, to imagine bachelorhood, to imagine starting over. For my mother, it was the beginning of the end. Their marriage on the rocks, further illustrated by him making a decision of this magnitude without discussion, and screaming out to her that he's preparing for what or who comes next. For me, it was both. It was the beginning of shame, of this thing that made my father different, stand out, maybe laughed at. It was the end of not feeling that way about him. I wasn't simply embarrassed. Everyday embarrassment would have been easy. I was oddly anxious about the awkwardness, the uncomfortableness of someone wondering if I knew, thinking maybe I didn't know. I know, how could anyone think I didn't know? That's the thing about a bad toupee, everyone knows. I pretended the toupee didn't exist, that everything was normal, like I pretended my parents fighting night and day didn't exist, that everything was normal. Like I pretended my father sleeping on the white leather couch in the family room the entire year I was 10 didn't exist, that everything was normal. Though also praying that when the school bus pulled into the driveway, no one could see him through the window, there on the couch in his undershirt and boxers, and no toupee. I put all the shame I had, all the ways in which I felt different because of the frightening chaos in my house, into that toupee. I feared everyone on the outside could now see what I hid on the inside. I was no longer different only because of what I hid inside my house. I was also different because of what my father attempted to hide in full view. He was wearing his insides on the outside, and mine right along with him. So I willed away the toupee, just as I willed away the yelling and screaming, as only a child's imagination can do, leaving open the possibility that someone might wonder, does she know? Then, 30 years later, it happened. But not as I imagined. Mom, you know Grandpa Bert wears a wig, right? My 7-year-old son, Jonah, stood at the door of my basement office in blue and orange striped pajamas, wanting to share a story with me about his grandpa's, my father's toupee. Pausing to wonder, does she know? There was no awkwardness, no uncomfortableness, no judgment. Only innocence and a simple question. Mom, you know Grandpa Bert wears a wig, right? We buried my father 2 years ago without the toupee. It was a decision, like all the other decisions we made during the 48 hours between his death and his burial. An easy one for us, his 5 children, to make. There in the casket, laid bare, his beautiful, bald, freckled head, the one I kissed, rubbed, and held on tightly until I was 8. The one I caught only glimpses of over the last 4 decades, while he slept with the toupee resting on a lampshade, a blown-off baseball cap while he was on a boat or playing tennis. Accidental exposure he quickly covered up. For the first time, I wished Jews had open caskets, free of the angst, free of the embarrassment, free of the shame. I wanted everyone to see what I saw in that final viewing. It was him, purely him.
Next in poetry, Monica Perez-Nelson.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Interloop, for having me. It's good to be here. I am happen to be a lawyer for the federal government. I've been a civil servant for 20 years, and it's so restorative to be around poets and writers in this community, so thank you. I'll be reading 2 poems. Get closer. The Women in a Family. In softest cream cashmere, silk draping, wrists of verbena, vanilla, rose, bronze chargers under china, layers of scent, rosemary roasting turkey, bread baking, today is a joyful day. The embroidered table runner and the periphery of memory. This girl, cupping the phone as she whispers to the tinny voice of a dispatcher. Or that girl, watching her mother breathe into the crumpled brown paper bag. Can you sum the pain, the hot weight of bully slaps across the face, to the side of the head, or hands on vacated bodies, wine-dank breath? Can you sum these lives and portion it like slices of pie, served to mothers or daughters, nursed, our sisters or cousins, lifting the forks to their lips? To call it strength, but what is it? But to daily wake, walk, eat of it. There is no Greek chorus here. Part 2. Lips licked, decadent meal done, cousins and daughters languid on couch cushions. Couches across therapists' offices, a dozen dark-haired young women, their constellations of disorder, closeness and cold retreat. Row, row, row your boat, these dozen cousins singing in a round. This leaning tower has stood over 600 years on its soft ground. Its flawed foundation has withstood 4 earthquakes. The second poem is from a series I'm doing about this current moment, this bloodbath. It's entitled, The Water Will Recede. The house was being carried downstream. I saw her, face in the window, stilled and grimace. I steeled myself to face her dying, and I stood, but fell at each particular of death. Bridges torn apart, downtown submerged in water, then rubble, a drowned body that sinks, then rises to the surface, torso floating higher than head and limbs. Our flooded house is half standing, a jagged bit of wall, buckled beams, like a roadside animal's skeleton clinging to a few patches of carcass. My dead garden, where a stray dog shit in my flower beds. They tell me it never was. The wax-leaved magnolia tree and its burst blossoms in my backyard, they say it was always an empty spot of lawn, that it is impossible to trace Orion even though the stars remain. I walk through the mud and step on the shit. I shed and lose that softest skin, and with this self who has lost. On soaked, level ground, I rise with the songbirds. I am beyond gutting, and my rage distills. I wash the always full sink of dishes, food still caked on, feel the crushed garlic on my fingers, spreading it over root vegetables for roasting, steam from the pot of soup, its promise. My children take this food I have made, my children who herald decency and the real flesh of others. Thank you. Next in fiction, Robert Uche. Are you here? Okay. Next in poetry, Gregory Luce.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. It's nice to be back here. This interlude was one of the best series ever, and I'm happy to be invited back to be reading it. Is that better? Is that good? All right, thanks. So anyway, any one of these readers would have been a difficult act to follow. Now I have to follow all of them, so I hope you'll indulge me and give me a good listen. I have a new book. I'm a poet, as was mentioned. I have a relatively recent book called Smells Like Rain. I'm going to read that. 3 poems, excuse me, out of it. I do have a couple of copies for sale if anybody would like to get their own copy. So first of all, I'm going to read the title poem. Sorry. I'm not always so good about the, here we go. This is called Smells Like Rain. Smells like rain, he says, and she, barely able to reach his hand, looks out across the clear sky at the thin line along the far horizon. Smells like rain, he says, and she, taller now, thinks of rain slanting through the wheat field ahead of the Oklahoma wind, hearing him whisper, "Please, Lord, don't let it be hail." Smells like rain, he says, and she, taller still and with a child of her own, looks at him, shrunken on the bed, eyes half open below his sweating forehead. His sister saying, "Open the window, child," and the slightest breeze ruffling his hair. Smells like rain, he says, and she whispers, "Smells like rain." I grew up in the countryside that poem references, and I have a fascination with extreme weather. When everybody else says we've got thunderstorms, oh no, I'm at the window. And that has never changed in over 40 years in DC. I also write a lot about music. I have an entire book previous to this that was all poems about music and musicians. There are a few follow-ups, however. Got my tags in the wrong places. Right. This is a poem that was inspired by composition by one of my favorite jazz performers and composers. Even if you're not familiar with jazz, you've probably heard of a few really great piano players, like, of course, Duke Ellington or Bill Evans. Maybe McCoy Tyner if you go a little bit deeper, but there's a tremendous number of really great jazz piano players and composers who are not as well known to the general public. One of whom is Mal Waldron, and I would highly recommend when you get home, jump on whatever your favorite streaming service is and look for some of his work. He has an enormous range of styles and abilities. This is a piece based on a piece called Warm Canto, which is easy to find on YouTube or on Apple and probably on Spotify as well. Besides Mel Waldron on piano, who wrote this, it features Eric Dolphy and Ron Carter, who are also extremely great. Ron Carter happens to still be alive and still performing. This is for an old friend of mine who I've lost touch with, named Emily. Warm Canto. She reminded me of you, sitting there in front of the coffee shop, a bit taller, maybe a bit older, still composed, a small spark in the deep blue eyes, gazing straight ahead at a point somewhere between my left shoulder and 100 miles away. I hadn't thought of you for months, but your face appeared now, looking down, half smiling and slightly sideways, your eyes shy with just a glint of élan. Suddenly the street noise diminished. Dolphy's clarinet notes floated gently above Waldron's light-stepped fingerings in the air behind my head. You slipped away abruptly, emailing goodbye. I had no hold on you, neither father nor lover, but you left a little fissure in my chest which throbs occasionally when I see or hear something that reminds me of you, like now, as I tried not to stare, still hearing Waldron, now in step with Ron Carter's fingers, plucking their way down the cello's neck. So switching my choices around a little bit, so I continue to ask you to bear with me. I was, for a while this evening, I was sitting further back, right across from one of the televisions, having trouble concentrating on what the readers were reading because I'm seeing explosions in the sky and all these brilliant white men talking about the next war that we're being pulled into. And then I heard my friend Majda talking about having friends and family right in that region. And I'm old, I've been through this many times. And we sit here and we're reading literature and we're having fun and we're eating good food, and I'm asking myself, why am I going to read poetry about music? Why am I going to keep going home and writing? And then I realized, that was rhetorical even to myself. Being here in community is resistance. Writing poetry, making anything beautiful is resistance. Listening to each other and encouraging each other is resistance. And it's also what life really is. And so whatever you're doing, I urge you to keep doing it. And it's an honor to be here and to share the space with so many brilliant, creative people. I'm going to close with a poem. One of my favorite poets is someone who's not so well known anymore. He was big in the 40s and 50s, but I think he's a magnificent poet. His name is Weldon Keys. He wrote a poem, the title which escapes me, but it includes the phrase, "An idiot wind is blowing, the conscience dies." And it would appear that Bob Dylan took that phrase, "idiot wind," for one of his songs. Anyway, I highly recommend looking it up. Anyway, this poem is called "He Disappeared." They don't know if he committed suicide, went off to another country, and vanished. It's a fascinating life story. But his car was found in the parking lot at the Golden Gate Bridge, and then he was never seen again. So this is called "Weldon Keys Walks to the Golden Gate," as an epigraph from one of his poems. His sad and usual heart, dry as a winter leaf. Will a heart float if detached from the body that carries it? Is the heart a rock or a balloon? What happens when the weight of the body compresses around it? How does it leap into the throat? When the heart sinks, where does it go? Do you still have a heart to break? Could you break it yourself if you had to? Thanks, everybody.